Hey guys, in this video you'll be learning how to make this cute little baby hat. Yay! Okay, things you'll need. Size 8 knitting needles. Also needles for yarn. Scissors, of course. Stitch marker. And the yarn. This is size 4 Karen Simply Soft. And last but not least, double pointed needles. You can actually knit the entire hat on these. To be honest, it'd probably be easier on these, but I'm not really comfortable knitting on these, so I tend to use this until I have to use these. If you notice, these are actually size 7. We're gonna pretend they're size 8 because I got the wrong size. We're gonna start off by casting on 58 stitches, and at the end we're actually gonna add an additional one, so it will be 59 in total. Oops. Move that over. Okay. Okay, so right here it's 58, and we're gonna, like I said at the beginning, add the additional one, so 59. Once you have your 59 stitches, you could stretch it out across. And what we're gonna do is we're gonna take the first stitch and pass it over, and then the last stitch that you had over here, we're gonna pass that one over the first stitch. It's okay if it stretches out like this, just make sure it doesn't come out, and kind of gently pull on it so that it'll bring it together. Now you can place the stitch marker right here. You can buy these or just simply make them out of other yarns that you use. Personally, I just cut a whole bunch of other yarns that I have like from the leftovers. There's no point in buying them, to be honest. And then you begin. It's gonna be a little tight because I knit mine's a little too tight, but you don't have to. Then we're gonna do knit 1, purl 1. We're gonna do this pattern for about 8 rows, and then we're gonna switch it up a bit. So the first one was knit, the next one is purl. And that's all you have to do for the next 8 rows. Knit. Once you get to the last stitch, you'll see that it evens out to 58. If you remember, this is the stitch that we passed over. Here's the yarn. It's kind of long. I would just cut this so you don't get it confused. That's the tail end. So you pass the stitch marker over, and then you go on to the second row. Once you knit a few rows, you'll start seeing it starting to look like this. And the reason we went over the first stitch when we began is so that it could look like this. Usually, most times when you connect the hat on a circular needle, it'll be really noticeable. It'll actually end up looking like this a little bit. So that's the reason why I went over, so that it'll look more uniform when you switch on to the new row. Once you have your 8 rows, we are gonna turn it around like this and just kind of flip it. So you move the marker back to the right side, and we're gonna start knitting again all the way around, except this time we're gonna knit the whole row, and we're gonna do 2 decreases so that we'll have 56 stitches instead of 58. So we begin. And you can do the decrease wherever you want. Doesn't have to be immediate. I'm just gonna do one now. So we knit 2 together to do a decrease. There's one. And then I'm just gonna do the next one so that I don't forget. Like I said, it doesn't matter because it's really only 2 stitches that you're decreasing, so you don't really have to have like a pattern for it. So once you do those 2 decreases, you knit the whole rest of the row. Okay. When you knit the last stitch, you're gonna notice that there's like this big gap right here because of when we turned it around, but don't worry about it. So you pass the stitch over, and then we begin with the new pattern, which is pretty simple. It's just going to be knit 2, purl 2, and we're going to repeat this for about 15 rows. There's knit 2, then purl 2. Once you have your 18 rows, we'll begin decreasing. It should look like this. This is going to be folded over, of course. Okay, let's begin. I'm only going to use 4 of these. I don't really like knitting on these, so the less I can use the better. Plus it's not a lot of stitches. Okay, so in order to decrease, we're gonna knit 2, and then we're gonna purl the next 2 together. And you're gonna do that throughout the whole row. So you knit 2 and then purl 2 together. Okay, pick up the next needle. Going on to the third. Okay. Once we get to the end of the row, we're gonna pass the stitch marker, and we're gonna continue knitting just like 2 stitches so that it'll hold the stitch marker on one needle. So in order to knit these 2 together, we're gonna take the stitch and turn it over. Oops. We're gonna turn it over like this. And then we're gonna pass the needle through the back. Grab the 2 stitches and then knit them together. And then purl 1. That's it. Then we go on to the new needle. Okay, so once again, we take the stitch, turn it over, pass it through the back, and knit them together. And then purl 1. needle's getting in the way. And you're gonna do this for the whole row. So you turn over the stitch, pass through the back, and knit them together. Then you purl one. And that's all there is to it. As you can tell, I didn't really evenly distribute them when I was putting them on these needles. Of course, when you do it, you can obviously distribute them more evenly than I did. Okay, and now we're on the last row. Move the marker over. Oops. Okay. On the last row, you're going to do exactly the same thing we did on this previous row, except we're going to be knitting both the knit stitch and the purl stitch together. Oh, that's already turned. Bad. So on this one, you're just knitting two together the whole row. Okay, and once you do all that, you can take the stitch marker out because it's not really useful anymore. And you should have a total of 14 stitches left. Now we can take the scissor, make the tail, cut it long enough so you can pass the needle through. It won't be like a little difficult if you cut it too short. Once you do that, you can get the knitting needle. Oops, grabbed the wrong tail. And with this, you're gonna pass it through each stitch knitwise. So you pass it back. And then you just pull it out. You do that all the way across. And that's it. Once you pass it through all the stitches, you just pull on it and it'll close it up on its own. After that, you could pull on it a little bit more so that it'll be closed all the way. Then you pass it inside. Kind of turn your hat inside out for a little bit. I'm gonna do a knot because I've said before I'm always paranoid that the hats will come apart, even though they never have. But you never know, so just to be on the safe side, I do a little knot. And then I just pass it through a couple of these. that's it. Once you do that, you can cut the tail, leave a little bit there. It's not going to bother anyone. Then the tail down here, we're going to do the same thing. Just going to pass it through a couple of these. And then you cut it. Okay, and once you're done, you turn it inside out again. If you notice these like raised little ridges right here, that's where we did the whole knit row. On the opposite side it'll be purled. That's how you know which way to turn it out. And it actually helps to maintain this a little easier so it doesn't like automatically fold back. You know where to fold it. And there's the baby hat. If you guys enjoyed the video, like and subscribe.